Well, listen, man, we got to start this one off with Jaylen Brown setting off the NBA shockwaves through the NBA, man, with a 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract. What was your reaction when you heard that the deal was finalized?
I mean, I knew the deal was going to happen from day one. And once like you have to make a decision in the NBA. Are you going to go with one superstar player and a bunch of 15 to 25 million dollar a year players, or are you going to go with the two super max guys or two mega max guys and the rest of your players are going to be role players? From all the dealings kind of after the season and everything that was happening with the Marcus Smart being traded, Porzingis coming in, I felt like they were just going to make a move to say, like, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are the guys that we want to build around. And from there, we're going to put the ball in their hands. And if they take us to where we need to go, we're going to find out if they're on that level. And so far, Jaylen and Jason never had to be on that level. They've had, in the past, Kyrie Irving. They've had Kemba Walker. Then they sort of got the reins passed to them. And then they had a really successful year last year. Then they bring in Malcolm Brogdon. So it's like, it's a very, very different league for them right now. It's basically they're going to have to lead this team. They're going to have to work together. They're going to have to make sure that they can take their games and be more than just scorers. They got to average close to 13, 14 assists if they're going to really make this thing happen.
You know, Scal, when I look at the reactions from Celtics fans and non-Celtics fans alike, he's overpaid. They overpaid him by 40%. A lot of recency bias. Obviously, the meltdown in Game 7 against Miami, the 8 turnovers, so on and so forth. But the way I look at it as you have two players in their prime in Tatum and Brown, 25 and 26 respectively. Took this team to the finals 2 years ago, Eastern Conference Finals a number of times. I mean, yes, the guy has his shortcomings, but what other options does Boston have to maintain a contender window? I mean, these two guys, to me, they're fourth in NBA history in terms of scoring duo at I believe like 56.7. I mean, where else are they going to go to maintain that window? To me, this is a guy who still has some more growing to do despite his shortcomings. You got to invest in it. This is the cost of doing business.
Yeah, and also I think that what people have to understand is, like, there's the NBA regular season and then the playoffs. Like, let's look at a guy like Jimmy Butler. Look to the level that he rose to in the playoffs. And, I think that Jimmy Butler was always the guy in Miami. When they looked at him for big games. They looked at him down the stretch. The Celtics are like, the difference between what they've done in the past and what I feel like they're going to do this year is both these guys are going to be required night in and night out to win games. Not just score 30, not do it against bad teams, not do it in the first 3 quarters. It's like doing it time and time again. And I'll tell you, as much as they would score, you would be, I have to do every single game. I have to analyze every game. You'd be really surprised on the amount of times in the fourth quarter where it's just those two guys winning you a ball game. It's a lot of times it's Derek White, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Tatum one night. Then it's Brown. It's like, it's really interesting that after all these years of success, they never really had to get the screws put to them, where if you lose a game, it falls on you two. And if you win this game, it's going to be because of you two. I'm not saying, listen, there's 82 of these bad boys. These guys have been together for a long time. But that's not happening as much as people think that it's happening. And it's going to happen a ton moving forward, because when you get paid the big bucks, this is what you are required to do. You are required to win games in the fourth quarter. You are required to win games when your counterpart is out. And I think that as much as you can look at all their numbers and say, well, this guy's done this and this guy's done that, I think they'll both be put to the test this year with what they're doing. And I think that it's a learning process. I've been a part of young players that had to grow into that role. And I know that they're not young, but it's a learning process to learn how to do that night in and night out, which in my opinion will help them in the playoffs.
One of the things I'm fascinating to see, because as you said, the spotlight is on them right now. But Jaylen Brown has had a quite a tumultuous relationship with the Boston fans. You go all the way back to draft night. They booed the pick. Even last year, they booed him for his ineffectiveness and inconsistency. He came out. He calls some of the Boston fans toxic. But now the bullseye's on his back. He's the highest paid player on the team for now until Tatum gets his bag. How do you feel like he's going to handle that pressure of having to perform every night in front of these fans?
I'm not sure that there's more pressure than before. I know it sounds like there is, but I think some of that stuff can, when you talk about pressure in the NBA, sometimes it's a no-win situation. I don't feel like Jaylen Brown's in a no-win situation. I feel like if he goes out there and just does his job, which is, go out there and hoop. Now, I don't think he'll ever have a problem putting up numbers. I don't think he'll have a problem guarding, rebounding. I don't think he'll have a problem with any of those things. The question will remain, the pressure on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum is, can you make people around you better? That's going to be the challenge for those two guys. And I'm not even sure that fans or media people will even identify that as the biggest challenge moving forward for them. I think there are going to be times when those guys can score 30, both those guys can score 30 on any given night. So when you say pressure, I think the pressure to win a championship probably comes down to, can they improve the players around them? I don't think it's going to be outside pressure because talent-wise, these guys can score at a high level. And the tumultuous relationship with the fans, that's all one person's opinion versus another. I know he said stuff before in the past about not being able to buy a house, or Boston has a lot of work to do, or, there's a lot of things that can come into play there. But I think the team rewarded him with the biggest contract in NBA history. In the NBA, people use this word respect. Respect usually ties into money, and the Celtics can't show him any more respect than they already have.
True indeed.
That's a fact. That's a fact with him getting the largest contract in NBA history at $304 million. Scal, I got a question though. Do you think part of the overpay, because I kind of do see it as an overpay just on, the entire work of art that we see from all these other players who are highly paid in the NBA. I mean, you look at Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, you got Nikola Jokic up there now with Jaylen Brown being number one. Only one of those guys have won a championship. Do you think that Brown making this much money is due to him being involved in so many trade rumors?
No, I think it has to do with the collective bargaining agreement, and he happened to be voted first, second, or third team All NBA, and he was going to get the max amount of money regardless if that is a Supermax at 304, or if he didn't make All NBA, and the Celtics could have extended him for, I think the amount was 40 or 160. So either way, he was going to get max money because the Celtics were going to show him that they value him, and he happened to be an All NBA player. So therefore, the Celtics are going to give him the max, and that max happened to be 304. That's nothing. It's weird about the NBA and value. You can't I'm sure, like you mentioned, Nikola Jokic is probably underpaid. Giannis is probably underpaid. There are some guys that you would just look at it like they're limited by the collective bargaining agreement, and some guys benefit from that. And Jaylen Brown this particular season, being an All NBA player, when he could get All NBA extension eligible, he got and he's going to get the max, and that's just the way the NBA has worked in the past and will always work this way.
So then with this contract now and him being one of the main focal points, obviously you got Jason Tatum. What do you want to see from Jaylen Brown as in terms of improvements now that he's going to be one of the lead dogs?
Well, I've always said this about these two guys, and I've been saying this for about 3 years now, and everyone thought I was nuts because they can't see the evolution of the game. But if the Celtics are going to win a championship, Tatum and Brown have to average somewhere between 13 and 15 assists a night. So that could be anywhere between 7.5 apiece. That could be 8 and 6. But I know that those guys can score. But the value of being that big time of a player, making that amount of money, is can you make people around you better? Including, can Brown make Tatum better, and can Tatum make Brown better? The stats on those two getting assists to each other are poultry right now. They have to improve that area. I always thought when I watched LeBron and D-Wade, early LeBron and D-Wade, it felt like they were two individuals playing together. But when they were really rolling, after year one, man, those guys played off each other so well. So ideally, you'll see more of that from Tatum and Brown. But also, Jaylen Brown has had a 10 assist, 11 assist night. He needs to be closer to that number than he is to the 2 or 3 night.